When the Pentagon decides to move the USS Gerald R forward, it's not just sending a ship, it's deploying a $13 billion piece of American power. This isn't just any old vessel, it is quite literally a floating fortress. So, what exactly makes these aircraft carriers the ultimate weapon in the U.S. arsenal? Let's get into it. So, this is the USS Gerald R. Ford, the newest, most technologically advanced aircraft carrier in the entire U.S. Navy. And his first major deployment isn't just a training exercise. Its very presence on the water is a message, a clear signal of American power projection across the globe. And when we say expensive, we really mean it. $13.5 billion to build. Now, just to put that number into perspective for you, the older Nimitz-class carriers, they cost somewhere between $5 and $7 billion in today's money. So what in the world makes this one ship worth that incredible price tag? So what is it that makes the Ford class such a radical game changer? Well, it all comes down to a massive technological leap forward. To really get this, you have to look at the rest of the fleet. See, out of the 11 U.S. carriers, 10 of them are older Nimitz-class designs that basically date back to the 70s. The Ford is something completely new. For instance, instead of old-school steam catapults to launch its jets, it uses a super powerful electromagnetic system. Now, this is a huge deal. It's not only more powerful and way more reliable, but it also gives a smoother launch, which means a lot less wear and tear on those multi-million-dollar aircraft. And yeah, while it costs nearly double what a Nimitz carrier does, the Navy actually estimates it's going to save $4 billion over its 50-year lifespan because it's so much more efficient and runs with a smaller crew. So with all this new tech and all this new power, well, it's no wonder that inside the military, the Ford class is considered the absolute jewel of the American Navy. But here's the thing, a carrier's true power isn't just in the ship itself. The most crucial thing to understand about these floating fortresses is this: it never, ever travels alone. It's the heart of what's called a carrier strike group. Okay, so think of it like this. You've got the carrier, which is basically a mobile airbase with 70 to 80 aircraft ready to go. Then it's got its bodyguards, cruisers and destroyers bristling with hundreds of Tomahawk cruise missiles. Lurking somewhere below is a nuclear submarine, the silent underwater threat. And of course, you've got the support ships keeping everyone fueled up and supplied. It's pretty much a self-contained mobile army on the ocean. And all of this together creates an incredible defense. The carrier's fighter jets, working with the advanced missile defense systems on the escort ships, like the Aegis system, which can track and engage hundreds of targets at once, they form this protective bubble, an air dome, that shields the entire group from attack. Which, of course, brings up a really key strategic question. America has military bases all over the world, right? So why on earth does it need these incredibly expensive floating fortresses? Well, the advantages really boil down to two huge factors. First up, sovereignty. See, to launch an attack from a base in, say, Germany or Japan, the U.S. needs to get permission. Out in international waters, a carrier doesn't need anyone's permission. And second, vulnerability. A land base is a sitting duck. It's a stationary target on a map. A carrier group, on the other hand, is constantly on the move across the vast ocean, which makes it an unbelievably difficult target to find, let alone hit. Now, these ships have a legendary reputation for toughness. I mean, they're designed from the ground up to take a massive hit and just keep on fighting. But can that legacy really survive the kinds of threats we're seeing in modern warfare? History is definitely on their side, that's for sure. During World War II, 12 different U.S. carriers were hit by bombs and kamikazes, and not a single one of them was sunk. Think about that. The USS Franklin was hit twice in 1945, a horrible attack, killing over 800 sailors, but the ship stayed afloat. Then, during the Vietnam War, 3 different carriers took direct hits from heavy munitions, and all of them survived to fight another day. They are just built to an incredible standard of durability. But that entire history of survival, all of those stories of toughness, that was before the age of modern hypersonic missiles. Today, countries like China are developing weapons that they claim can sink an American aircraft carrier from 1,000 miles away. It's a threat these floating fortresses have simply never had to face in a real conflict, and it's forcing a complete rethink of naval strategy. So let's zoom out for a second. Why does the US invest so much in these things when other global powers just don't? Well, it all comes down to its unique position on the global chessboard. The numbers are, well, they're pretty stark. The United States operates 11 aircraft carriers. Its closest competitor, China, just launched its third. Now, this massive gap isn't an accident. It exists for one simple reason. America's military doctrine for decades has been built around fighting wars far, far away from its own shores. And to do that, you need the ability to project overwhelming force across entire oceans. And just keeping this fleet ready is a monumental logistical challenge. The Navy operates on something it calls the rule of three. So for every one carrier you see out there deployed on a mission, there's another one back home going through extensive, long-term maintenance. And there's a third one that's currently in training, getting its crew ready for the next deployment. So just to have 3 or 4 carriers active around the globe at any given time requires this massive fleet of 11 ships. So you take this huge investment and you add in the emergence of these new threats, and it all leads to a very high-stakes gamble and a fierce debate that's happening right now inside the Pentagon itself. Are these carriers the ultimate tool of power projection, or are they just giant, multi-billion-dollar targets? And the debate really breaks down like this. On one side, the proponents argue that their mobility, their independence, their unmatched power, it's all absolutely essential for global influence. But on the other side, you've got opponents saying, hold on a second. They argue these things are just too expensive and way too vulnerable in an age of hypersonic missiles, concentrating too much military power into a single, potentially fragile asset. Which leaves us with a central question, the billion-dollar question for the future of naval warfare. In an age of new superweapons that have never actually been tested in combat, is the aircraft carrier still the undisputed king of the seas? Or is it now a multi-billion-dollar target just waiting for a fight it can't win?